this? How could you? I didn't mean for this to happen. It's too late for excuses.
The billionaire walked into the hospital wearing a simple jacket, no security, no assistants, no cameras. No one recognized him. No one bowed. No one rushed to help. But what he witnessed inside one small hospital room would shatter his view of money, power, and success forever, and by the end of that night, he would make a decision that changed thousands of lives, including his own. Stay until the end, because the final moment of this story is something no amount of money could ever buy. Adrian Cole was known as a man who never waited. Not for flights. Not for meetings. Not for people. At 46, he was one of the wealthiest men in the country, a self-made billionaire whose name appeared on skyscrapers, universities, and charity galas. Cameras followed him everywhere. Doctors came to his mansion when he sneezed. Yet on this particular morning, Adrian woke up with a heaviness in his chest he couldn't explain. It wasn't physical pain, it was something deeper. A quiet emptiness that no success had ever filled. He canceled his meetings. Ignored his phone. Put on a plain jacket and drove himself to a public hospital on the other side of the city. No announcement. No entourage. No one knew. Inside, the hospital smelled of antiseptic and exhaustion. The floors were worn, the walls chipped. Nurses moved fast, their faces tired but determined. Adrian took a seat in the waiting area beside an elderly man holding a plastic bag and a young mother rocking a coughing child. No one recognized him. For the first time in decades, Adrian felt invisible. Then he heard crying. It came from down the hallway, a quiet, desperate sound, not loud enough to draw attention, but heavy enough to pull at his chest. He followed it. The sound led him to a small room with a half-open door. Inside, a boy no older than 8 sat beside a hospital bed, holding his mother's hand. She was pale, hooked to machines that beeped softly. The boy whispered to her through tears. "Mom. I'll be okay. Don't worry. I'll take care of everything." Adrian froze. The words hit him harder than any boardroom failure ever had. The boy shouldn't have been the strong one. A nurse stepped in quietly and spoke gently. "Visiting time is over, sweetheart." The boy nodded, wiping his tears quickly, trying to be brave. As he stood, Adrian noticed his shoes, worn thin, the soles separating. Outside the room, Adrian overheard the nurse speaking to another staff member. "She needs surgery," the nurse said softly. "But they don't have insurance. They've already delayed too long." Adrian's chest tightened. He had just spent more on a watch than this woman's life would cost. He walked further down the hallway. In another room, an elderly man lay alone, staring at the ceiling. No visitors. No flowers. Just silence. In another, a nurse held a patient's hand because no family had come. Adrian felt something crack inside him. This hospital was full of people fighting for life, quietly, bravely, while the world outside celebrated wealth and headlines. Then he saw something that stopped him completely. A janitor, barely older than 30, was kneeling beside a patient's bed, carefully feeding soup to an old woman who could barely lift her hands. The janitor smiled gently and said, slowly, "Mama. It's still warm." The woman smiled back like a child. No cameras. No applause. No recognition. Adrian turned away, his vision blurring. For the first time, he wondered a terrifying question. What good is my money, if I never truly see people? And just as he turned toward the exit, he overheard a doctor speaking in frustration. "We do everything we can, but without resources, sometimes all we can offer is kindness." Adrian stopped walking. Because in that moment, he realized something shocking. This hospital had more humanity than every boardroom he had ever sat in. And that realization would soon force him to make a choice that terrified him more than losing his fortune. Adrian didn't sleep that night. The image of the boy holding his mother's hand replayed again and again. The janitor feeding the old woman. The quiet courage he had witnessed without a single spotlight. At dawn, Adrian returned to the hospital. This time, he went straight to the administration office. The staff didn't recognize him at first. They spoke to him like they would to anyone else, politely, but without urgency. When he finally introduced himself, the room fell silent. The administrator's hands trembled. "Mr. Cole, why didn't you tell us you were coming?" Adrian shook his head. "Because I needed to see the truth." He asked for files. Numbers. Budgets. Equipment lists. What he saw horrified him. Doctors working double shifts. Machines older than some patients. Nurses paying out of pocket for supplies. Adrian closed the folder slowly. "Prepare a list," he said calmly. "Everything this hospital needs." "Everything?" The administrator whispered, "Sir." "That would cost." "I know," Adrian interrupted. "And I'm not donating." They looked confused. "I'm investing," he said. "In lives." Within hours, the hospital received emergency funding. Surgeries were approved. Equipment orders placed. Doctors hired. Nurses given support. But Adrian wasn't finished. He returned to the small room where the boy and his mother had been. The surgery was scheduled immediately. When the boy saw Adrian standing there, he looked up nervously. "Are you lost, sir?" the boy asked. Adrian knelt down so they were eye to eye. "No," he said softly. "I'm exactly where I need to be." The boy's mother survived the surgery. Days later, when Adrian returned again, this time with no cameras, the boy hugged him without knowing who he was. "Thank you for coming back," the boy said. "Most people don't." That sentence broke Adrian completely. Weeks later, headlines exploded. Billionaire funds public hospitals nationwide. Adrian Cole quietly cancels luxury projects to support healthcare. But the biggest change never made the news. Adrian began visiting hospitals regularly, without announcing himself. Listening. Watching. Learning. He stopped chasing applause and started chasing impact. And years later, when someone asked him what moment changed his life, he didn't mention money, deals, or success. He said, "The day I walked into a hospital where no one knew my name, and I finally remembered what it meant to be human."